Chapter 1. Docking at the Edge of the Known. The Veiler spire hung against the starfield like a coiled serpent of chrome and crystal, its spiral arms rotating slowly around a molten heart of orange light. Docking beacons pulsed in a hypnotic rhythm. Their glow diffused through the thin haze of drifting ice and vapor vented from countless ships. Cal Doran had seen a dozen stations in his years of wandering the Orion fringe, but nothing quite like this. It felt alive, breathing through the groan of its ancient girders and the hum of energy conduits running like arteries through its vast body. The Hawthorne's luck shuddered gently as the mag clamps caught her hull. Cal felt the change instantly. The subtle pressure shift as the docking seals engaged, the faint tremor that ran to the deck plating when the station's gravity field locked onto the ship's inertial dampeners. He glanced through the forward viewport and caught a last glimpse of the endless black. Then it was gone, swallowed by the shimmering glass of the docking umbilical sliding into place. Docking secure, the ship's AI announced in its flat, unbothered voice. Cal exhaled slowly. All right, let's go meet the neighbors. The airlock cycled open with a hiss of ozone-laced air, carried with it the sense of 1,000 alien species, oils and spices, and a faint metallic tang of recycled atmosphere. The docking concourse was a cathedral of strange architecture, rib support beams twisting like the bones of some colossal creature, walls studded with market stalls, repair kiosks, and vendors whose wares glowed, hissed, or pulsed faintly with life. A pair of translucent skinned Savari glided past, their eyes faceted like gemstones. An insectoid trader barked in a clicking dialect, its mandibles flashing with strips of bioluminescent color. Somewhere high above, a flock of avian synthorganisms spiraled lazily in the warm currents rising from the reactor vents. Cal adjusted the strap of his tool harness, the weight of his collapsible multi-tool knocking gently against his thigh as he moved. Every eye that glanced his way seemed to linger, some curious, some wary. Humans weren't common here, this far past core routes. Out here, reputation traveled faster than ships, and humans had a reputation for being unpredictable. A voice rasped over the din. You there, human? Cal turned. Standing just beyond a cluster of traders was a figure that made the rest of the crowd instinctively give way. Nearly 7 feet tall, plated in overlapping armor that seemed grown rather than forged, before insectal limbs ending in clawed, dexterous fingers. Her eyes, 3 of them, fixed on him with a predator's focus. Cal blinked. Yeah. The alien stepped closer, her movement precise, as if every motion had been rehearsed. A faint chittering accompanied her words, layered beneath the translator's low hum. What is that? She pointed one claw at his hip. The hard thing, hanging between your legs. Is it a weapon? For a second, Cal thought the entire docking concourse had gone quieter. A pair of station security drones swiveled their optics toward him, their anti-personnel emitters humming faintly. A stallkeeper paused mid-sail. The Savari froze mid-glide. Cal followed her gaze and snorted softly. This? No. It's a tool. Multi-function engineering rig. It can patch a hull, rewire a reactor, crack open a bulkhead in a pinch. Not much use for hurting people. The alien tilted her head, mandibles flexing. So it is a weapon that refuses to be won? Cal grinned. You could say that. On my world, the best way to win a fight is to make sure it never starts. That earned a low, rolling click from her throat, a sound he couldn't quite read. Strange. On my world, no warrior walks without their blade, even in peace. She stepped back, still studying him. You may pass, human, but I will watch you. Cal shrugged and started forward, the crowd slowly resuming its flow. As he walked deeper into the spire, the murmur of alien voices and the throb of distant engines wrapped around him like a living ocean. He felt the eyes on his back, hers most of all. It was a reminder that out here, in the shadow of dying stars, even a simple tool could make you seem dangerous. And sometimes that wasn't such a bad thing. Chapter 2. A question that stops the crowd. The market ring was a halo of color around the spire's steel spine. Steam lifting from soup vats, glass-etched signs pulsing in tiered languages, the floor vibrating gently with the heartbeat of 1,000 machines. Cal had taken 3 steps into that river of life when the insectoid warrior from the dockside, plates glimmering like oil-slick obsidian, stalked after him and raised a claw. "You human!" Her translator gave the vowels a sanded edge. "What is this hard thing hanging between your legs? Is it a weapon?" The sentence struck the crowd like a drop-pressure seal. Vendors froze mid-haggle. A trio of winged couriers snapped their membranes tight and hovered, eyes glittering. Even the air seemed to thin. 2 station security drones angled in, blue halos swelling around their muzzles. Cal's mouth went dry. He kept his hands visible, palms open. The universal don't shoot of 100 ports. The multi-tool, folded, black, battered, knocked his thigh as if reminding him he'd never been quick enough to outrun trouble anyway. "It's a tool," he said slow, as if the word might chip in transit. "Kestrel, 9 fold-out rig. 4 repairs. Not for fighting." Her mandibles flexed. The warrior's 3 eyes narrowed in a deliberate sequence, top, left, right, like shutters testing light. "On Vesa Prime," she said, "we display weapons in peace, that others may know whom not to provoke." Cal nodded toward the drones. "Different custom here. Display the wrong thing, and they assume you want to use it." A ripple of nervous chittering moved through the onlookers. The warrior did not step back. Wind from an overhead vent stirred a chemical tang through the aisle, lifting Cal's hair, carrying the faint sweetness of Savari flower brew. Somewhere far beneath, the station groaned, a deep-bellied, old ship sound. "Show me," she said. He hesitated. Fast movements were how people got ventilated. Cal crouched, exaggerating every motion, and eased the rig from its holster. He thumbed to safety and let the chassis bloom in stages. Arc driver teeth unfolding like petals, diagnostic prongs sliding out with insect precision, a corded spool flicking free and retracting with a soft buzz. He placed it on the floor and stepped back. A child, if that's what the small, curious, translucent being was, leaned out from behind the stall, fascinated. Its guardian hissed and pulled it back. "It welds," Cal said. "Cuts. Measures. Talks to machines that refuse to talk to me." He offered a tentative half-smile. "Not great for stabbing." "Most things can stab if you insist," the warrior replied. Her carapace ticked faintly an unreadable music. "You are brave, or ignorant." "Both have kept me alive," Cal said. A sign above them flickered, stuttering through glyphs. A vendor cursed in a language that was mostly vowels and flipped a lever to no effect. Cal glanced from the drones to the failing sign, and a thought slid into place. "May I?" he asked the vendor, pointing. The vendor glowered but waved a hand, the gesture universal. "Fix it or go away." Cal crouched again, letting his breath find the station's rhythm. He swung the multi-tools diagnostic prongs up, their tips glowing a soft blue, and touched the sign's housing. Data scrolled across the rig's microdisplay. Voltage sagged, a hairline crack in a board, a capacitor that had leaked its life like stale perfume. "You will repair this to prove your claim?" the warrior asked, her voice half curiosity, half challenge. Cal flexed the arc driver. The tool purred. "I'll repair it because bad light sells bad fish." A few onlookers snorted, laughter, maybe. He cut power to the sign, removed the faceplate with a twist that only an engineer's hands knew, then braced himself on the stall frame. The station's gravity field was steady, but you never trusted it. He spread his boots a little wider, like a sailor on wet decking. He soldered a silver thread across the fracture, swapped the capacitor for one scavenged from the rig's emergency cache, and reseated the board. The smell of hot resin and singed dust curled up, earthy, almost comforting. He reattached the faceplate, stepped back, and nodded. The vendor threw the lever. The sign flared to life, glyphs crisp and steady, casting royal blue light across the aisle. The child clapped its filmy hands. The vendor stared at the sign, then at Cal, then made the complicated hand-curled gesture of a small discount. Cal waved it off. The drone's halos dulled. They drifted back into the current of air like bored sharks. Not a weapon, Cal said, sliding the tool back into its holster. His heart eased its grip on his ribs. Just something that keeps things from breaking the people who rely on them. The warrior studied him, as if he were a riddle engraved on old bone. Up close, Cal saw tiny etchings on her armor, script or score marks, or both. Filled with a substance that caught the neon, made constellations along her plates. She had the stillness of someone who moved only when necessary. "I am Thryn of House Ashbourne," she said at last. The translator softened her consonants, but the name felt like forged heat. "We carry blades to tell the world we are ready. You carry this tool to tell it you intend to endure." Cal shrugged a shoulder. "On Earth, the best fighters I knew carried first aid kits." That earned a sound from her, low, rolling, amused. The closest thing her species had to a smile rippled through the soft membranes where cheek would be. "Endurance is a weapon," she said, as if testing the shape of it. "Perhaps you are armed after all." Lights along the market strip dimmed, then returned a shade too bright. A faint tremor fluttered underfoot, so subtle it could have been imagined. Cal's head lifted, listening. The station's shifted, a half tone off. "Do you feel that?" he asked. Thryn's crest plates flexed. Her upper right hand slid, almost unconsciously, to the hilt of a blade at her back. "The spire complains," she said. "Old bones do." Cal's gaze drifted along the ceiling conduits, tracing paths the way other men trace constellations. The tremor faded. The crowd exhaled. Music rose again from a nearby stall, thin metal strings, a rhythm like rain. "Well," Cal said, forcing his shoulders loose, "if the spire aches, I'm here to rub the knots out." Thryn cocked her head. "You will take a contract, then?" He hadn't intended to. He never intended to. Depends on who's asking. Her lower left hand lifted, palm outward. An invitation, a formal offer, a piece of her culture bridged across an aisle of fried spices and neon glare. "Walk with me. Human. If your not weapon can quiet an old station, there is honor and pay. And I would understand why you laugh with your hands open while drones measure your skull." Cal glanced once at the reopened crowd, at the repaired sign gleaming steady as a promise, then at her offered palm. He set his callous hand against chitin, feeling the faint buzz of her subdermal circuits. "All right, Captain," he said. "Lead on." Chapter 3, Trial by Starfire. The spire's docking ring was a labyrinth of gleaming conduits and transparent walkways, its outer skin stitched with viewport panels showing the void beyond. Cal had been in the station barely an hour when the world's heartbeat changed. It began as a low rumble, like distant thunder traveling through steel, and then the lights flickered, one pulse, two. Somewhere deep in the station's bowels, alarms began to howl, their tone urgent and layered in multiple alien frequencies. On the overhead status bands, script flared crimson. Reactor Sector 7, containment failure. Thryn stiffened beside him. Her lower hands clenched her belt, upper ones shifting to her weapons. "Core coolant breach," she said, her voice suddenly stripped of its measured calm, "if it spreads to the ring." The floor trembled again, sharper this time, and a high-pitched whine vibrated in Cal's teeth. He knew that sound. Coolant pumps cavitating, metal screaming under heat it wasn't meant to hold. "Which way?" he asked, already reaching for his multi-tool. She hesitated, just long enough to glance at him, as if weighing whether a soft-skinned outsider belonged anywhere near a reactor core. Then she pointed with her upper right claw toward a sealed bulkhead. "Maintenance shafts. Follow close, human." The hatch was already locked, but Cal's rig bit into its override panel with hungry efficiency. Sparks spat as he bypassed the station's stubborn safety protocols. "This override sequence," he muttered, "is about 3 centuries older than it should be. Who's been maintaining this place? Blind lobsters." "Blind what?" Thryn demanded, but the hatch rolled open before she got an answer. They ducked into the narrow service corridor. It was hotter here, the recycled air tasting faintly of scorched copper. Emergency strobes painted the walls in harsh red and white, making the conduits look like throbbing veins. The hum of the Spire's main engines was louder, an angry, wounded animal under their feet. They reached the coolant transfer room in Sector 7, and Cal's breath caught. The main distribution manifold was spewing vapor, white plumes hissing into the already humid air. The coolant mist clung to the chitin of Thryn's armor, beating in shimmering droplets. The deck was slick, and the whole space reeked of antifreeze sharpness and ozone. 3 of Thryn's crew were already there, their insectoid forms darting frantically between panels. One looked up at Cal, clicked something sharp, and made a dismissive gesture. "He is human." Thryn snapped at them in her native tongue. The translator caught none of the sharp undertone, but the crew's antennae flattened, and they grudgingly stepped aside. Cal knelt by the manifold, scanning the readouts on his rig. Numbers rolled across the tiny display. Pressure drop, temperature spike, coolant loss accelerating. "The heat exchangers are starving," he said, "and these emergency dampers aren't engaging because the control relays are fused shut." He thumbed open the rig's cutting head and began carving through the warped relay casing. Each cut sent a hiss of escaping vapor into the already shimmering air. The metal fought him, bending and groaning, but he didn't slow. Sweat stung his eyes. His muscles ached in the station's gravity field. "Pressure is rising," one of Thryn's crew warned. The floor shuddered beneath them, and a panel overhead rattled loose, spraying a thin stream of scalding coolant. Cal cursed and ducked aside. "If that breach gets worse, we lose half the ring. Everyone here goes vacuum-side in pieces. You think we do not know this?" Thryn growled. "Then stop telling me the problem and hold that damn pipe steady." For a heartbeat, she stared at him, 3 unblinking eyes fixed on his flushed, human face. Then she slammed her lower claws onto the pipe, anchoring it like a living vice. Steam curled off her armor, the scent of hot resin rising with it. Cal jammed a new relay from his own emergency kit into place, wires sparking as they met their counterparts. The rig's diagnostic prongs glowed bright blue, and the numbers on its display began to steady. Pressure stabilized. Temperature curve flattened. Somewhere far below, the wine in the coolant pumps dipped a note toward normal. Thryn released the pipe, flexing her clawed fingers. "It holds," she said, almost in disbelief. "Not forever," Cal said, wiping condensation from his brow, "but long enough to replace the whole manifold. You got maybe 6 hours before it tries to kill you again." The emergency strobe still flashed, but the alarms dulled, shifting to a warning tone rather than the shriek of imminent disaster. Thryn's crew exchanged glances, still wary of him, but no longer dismissive. One gave a small, grudging dip of the head. Thryn straightened to her full imposing height, her carapace catching the dim light. "You came into the core without hesitation," she said, "for a place and a people not your own." Cal holstered his rig. "If the spire blows, we all get scattered into the same vacuum. Figured I'd rather keep breathing." Her mandibles shifted, a gesture he was starting to recognize as approval. Perhaps endurance is not the only weapon you carry, human. Somewhere deep inside the spire, the Engines hum-steadied. But Cal had the uneasy sense that this was only the first time the station would try to test him. And next time, it might not be a coolant leak. Chapter 4, The Enemy Within. The coolant crisis had barely cooled when the whispers began. By the time Cal returned to the market ring, the atmosphere felt different, less like the chaotic churn of commerce and more like a tide pulling back before a storm. Vendors spoke in low tones. Station security drones hovered in clusters, their optics glowing with a predatory, searching light. On the high-level news bands that ran along the concourse walls, alien glyphs pulsed in urgent crimson. Thryn caught up to him outside a vendor stall, her forearms folded tight against her chest. Her armor was still faintly damp from the coolant spray, but her voice was colder than the vacuum. "They say it was sabotage," she told him. Cal frowned. "You mean the coolant breach?" Her 3 eyes fixed on him, unblinking. "The governing council claims the devices that crippled the manifold were manufactured by my people. House Ashbourne." Her mandibles clicked once, sharply. "They call it proof." "That's convenient," Cal muttered, scanning the crowd. He could feel eyes on them, too many eyes. "And I suppose they're not interested in the fact that those relays were already falling apart before someone got cute with them?" Thryn's crest shifted, a subtle sign of unease. "Convenience is the core of politics here, human. Truth is only decoration." The concourse lighting flickered, and for a heartbeat the alien market was cast in ghostly shadow. Cal's gaze swept the stalls and upper catwalks. The air felt heavier now. The hum of the spire systems edged with a faint, uneven tremor. He didn't like it. "Where exactly were the charges planted?" he asked. She hesitated. "Maintenance conduits between the docking ring and the auxiliary power grid." Her lower right claw flexed, restless. Small devices shaped charges, low yield, but enough to cripple systems if placed in the right sequence. Cal's jaw tightened. "And they were in a section that's supposed to be sealed off without clearance?" "Yes." "Then someone had clearance," he said flatly. "And if it wasn't you or your people," he let the thought hang, "one of Thryn's crew, the smallest and fastest moving of the insectoids, skittered up with a rapid burst of clicks. The translation band on Thryn's neck rendered it into a strained monotone. "Council guards are searching Ashbourne quarters. They carry stun rifles." Thryn's upper left hand curled into a fist, the armor plates grinding faintly. "They intend to find evidence, whether it exists or not." Cal took a slow breath, his mind working through the possibilities. This wasn't just an accident being blamed on the wrong people. It was positioning. Someone wanted the Ashbourne discredited, maybe removed entirely from the Spire's defense contracts, and they were willing to risk the station's reactor to do it. "I want to see the breach site," Cal said. Thryn tilted her head, regarding him as though he'd suggested stepping out an airlock for a stroll. "Why?" "Because I've seen enough of the station's guts to know when something smells wrong," he said. "If these devices were planted to frame you, I'll see it. And if I see it, maybe I can prove it." Her mandibles flexed, considering. "The conduits are narrow, claustrophobic. The air is not pleasant for your kind." Cal smirked faintly. "I grew up in a mining hab 6 levels deep in rock. If I can crawl through a carbon fog ventilation duct at 13, I can handle this." The trip to the maintenance access took them away from the neon and heat of the market into the cold, dim-lit corridors near the Spire's structural core. Here the walls were raw metal unpolished, lined with fat bundles of conduit wrapped in thermal cloth. The hum of the engines was closer now, more a physical vibration than a sound. Thryn pulled open a narrow service hatch. A wave of stale, metallic-smelling air rolled out. "After you," she said, gesturing with one claw. The conduit was barely wide enough for Cal to crawl, knees scraping the ribbed plating. His breath fogged faintly in the chill. Ahead, the faint green glow of emergency guide strips lit the path in broken dashes. Every sound, his breathing, the shift of his tool harness, seemed too loud. Halfway through, he found the first scorch mark. A clean, surgical cut in the conduit insulation, not from wear, but from a tool. The edges were sharp, deliberate, He pressed 2 fingers to the mark, feeling the faint ridges of machining. Yeah, he called back softly. This was done with precision. Someone knew exactly where to cut. Farther along, they reached a place where the shaped charge had been planted. The adhesive residue still clung to the conduit, and the pattern of scorch told its own story. It had been placed to look crude, but the precision of the angles betrayed a professional. Cal could almost picture the saboteur here, working quickly, confident no one would see. Thryn crouched beside him, her bulk filling the narrow space. You see something? Cal nodded. Yeah, whoever planted this, he tapped the scorch, had a maintenance key, and not just any key, one with layered access. That means council-level clearance. She was silent for a long moment. If you are right, she said at last, then this was not just sabotage. It is a move in a greater game. Cal nodded. Yeah, whoever planted this, he tapped the scorch, had a maintenance key, and not just any key, one with layered access. That means council-level clearance. She was silent for a long moment. If you are right, she said at last, then this was not just sabotage. It is a move in a greater game. Cal holstered his rig. Then maybe it's time we started playing back. As they crawled out into the cold metal corridor, Cal couldn't shake the feeling that the station was holding its breath, waiting for the next fracture, the next spark. Somewhere, someone was counting on humans to stay quiet. They were going to be disappointed. Chapter 5, Blood and Oxygen. The spire was alive with panic. Alarms sang in discordant symphony, their alien frequencies bouncing off the metal corridors like a predator stalking its prey. Cal moved fast, limbs pumping in the artificial gravity, as though he could outrun the chaos itself. Behind him, Thryn's four arms worked like a living instrument, clamping doors, flipping switches, and signaling her crew in clicks and gestures too rapid for any translator to keep up with. Sector 9, she shouted, her voice cutting to the mechanical roar. Pressure breach in the secondary oxygen manifold. Crew trapped. Cal didn't hesitate. Zero gravity awaited them around the next bend. A corridor ripped open by the Sabotage, the inner atmosphere venting into the station like silver mist. He could see the shimmer of escaping oxygen, carried with a faint, acrid tang of overworked filters. Brace yourself, he said, diving into the void. For a second, everything went weightless. The hum of the engines became a low vibration in his chest. His body rotated in slow arcs, limbs adjusting instinctively. Cal's hand caught a conduit, spinning him around to grab the emergency tether. The spire's internal lights reflected off his visor, painting his face in sharp white and blood-red flashes from the emergency strobes. Thryn followed, her armor scraping lightly against the walls. She hissed a warning as her lower claws clutched a floating hatch panel. Human, watch your trajectory. Cal grinned, even in the tension, adrenaline spiking. I've wrestled vacuum vents before breakfast. Ahead, the trapped crew floated in a pocket of near-zero oxygen. Their breathing masks were cracked, their limbs flailing against invisible walls, eyes wide with panic. Cal's rig activated a micro-repair drone, sending it buzzing forward to stabilize the first panel. Sparks rained as the drone cut and re-welded fractured conduits, and the small crew began to inhale slightly more freely. But it wasn't enough. The manifold itself shuddered, cracked metal groaning, leaking mist that carried frost in its wake. Pressure won't hold. One of Thryn's crew clicked sharply. It will collapse. Cal's mind raced. He could feel the heat of panic building around him, but a pattern emerged, logical and ruthless. The Sabotage conduits weren't just failing. They were forcing him to improvise. Human ingenuity, fragile but persistent, was all he had. He grabbed the manifold with both hands, inspecting the fracture. A seam ran along the side, jagged and irregular, evidence of deliberate weakening. The alien tech was unfamiliar, layered with systems designed to prevent tampering. But humans had a habit of ignoring limits. "Hold it steady," Cal barked to Titawain, who latched her lower claws to the manifold. Sparks flew as their combined weight shifted the metal enough for his micro-drone to weld the fracture. A hiss of escaping coolant and oxygen sprayed across his visor. He spat out a string of cuss words in every language he knew. The weld held, just barely, but the manifold shuddered again, testing the fix. The small crew gasped and coughed, their oxygen flow stabilizing in jerky pulses. Cal and Titawain let go at the same time, floating back as gravity slowly reasserted itself thanks to the station's emergency field dampers. "Not perfect," Cal said, wiping sweat and frost from his brow, "but buys you time." Thywain's mandibles clicked softly, a sound he was learning to recognize as approval. "You are reckless," she said, "and perhaps foolish." "Maybe," he replied, "but I don't get points for doing nothing." For a moment, suspended in the dim glow of emergency lights, their eyes met the haze of venting oxygen and stray sparks. Cal could feel a strange kinship, born from risk and survival, the kind that alien cultures never expected humans to forge so quickly. There was no ceremony in this bond, only the acknowledgement that, in the chaos of vacuum and pressure, one could rely on each other. A loud metallic clang echoed through the corridor. Cal spun toward it. A loose panel floated by, spinning slowly, and behind it, the first hints of deliberate interference became obvious. Tiny devices planted to destabilize even more sectors. Thywain's upper left claw flexed. "Someone is testing the station. And testing us." Cal's heart rate accelerated, but he smiled grimly. "Then it's a good thing humans don't scare easily." With a quick series of gestures and commands, Thywain signaled her crew to begin a coordinated repair. Cal attached his drone to the new target, watching it hum to life. Sparks, steam, and the scent of burning coolant mingled, forming a sensory chaos he'd learned to thrive in. The station might have been trying to kill them, but as long as humans were present, it wasn't going to win. And Cal had a stubborn feeling that, no matter how alien the challenge, humans always found a way. Chapter 6, Shadows in the Council. The council chamber was not designed for humans. Its walls were crystalline, refracting light into disorienting colors, and the air carried a faint tang of alien ozone, mixed with a scent of formal incense that Thywain said was meant to sharpen perception. A low hum of energy ran to the floor, vibrating through Cal's boots, making him acutely aware of every movement. "Are you sure about this?" he whispered, leaning toward Thywain as they entered the circular room. The other delegates, an array of species with forms and eyes that seemed designed to unsettle human vision, regarded them with polite, predatory curiosity. She clicked her mandibles softly. "You have done well so far, human. But this council, they see humans as fragile tools, not actors in their games." Cal's grin was faint but defiant. "Good thing I don't do fragile." The lead delegate, a tall being with translucent skin stretched over a lattice of visible bioconduits, spoke first. Its voice reverberated, modulated to resonate with the chamber. "You dare accuse members of this council of sabotage?" Cal held his gaze steady. "I'm not accusing, yet. I'm observing. And what I've observed tells me someone here is trying to cripple the Spire. Someone wants House Ashbourne blamed, and I intend to find out who." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Some leaned closer, others recoiled. Cal could feel the undercurrent of alien politics, like a tide threatening to pull him under. Yet he refused to flinch. Humans thrived on discomfort. They adapted, improvised, and sometimes surprised even the most calculating species. A secondary delegate, shorter and squat, with shifting scales like liquid metal, spoke in a tone dripping with derision. "You assume your human logic is sufficient to uncover our subtle machinations?" Cal's hand brushed the edge of his utility rig. The small drones ready to deploy at a moment's notice. Logic is a start. Tenacity finishes a job. Thryn stepped forward, clicking her mandibles. Observe the subtlety, human. Watch their movements. Listen to the pauses between their words. Truth often hides in what is unsaid. Cal's eyes scanned the chamber. One delegate, far to the back, kept adjusting a panel of floating glyphs, their motions too precise, too deliberate. The patterns flickered in ways that seemed meaningless at first, but he'd learned to read patterns where others saw chaos. "See that?" he whispered. "That one's hiding something." Thryn's three eyes narrowed. "You sense correctly, but the council is a web. Pull one thread and the entire structure shifts." Cal nodded, studying the subtle gestures, the micro-movements of the delegates. Humans had a habit of noticing what aliens ignored. Tiny inconsistencies in behavior, the almost imperceptible change in breathing or limb position. Here, that skill was an advantage. The chamber's energy hum changed pitch suddenly, signaling the start of the council's deliberation. Members spoke in rapid, overlapping bursts of alien language. A translator drone pinged the nearest words into human comprehension, but Cal was listening to more than words. He was listening to intent. One delegate leaned toward another, whispering in what should have been a private channel. Cal caught a phrase, "Seal Ashbourne before they can expose us." His heart skipped. That was it, the confirmation. The saboteur had council-level access, someone who moved pieces on the board with deadly precision. He whispered to Thryn, "There, that's our shadow." She tilted her crest. "Do you confront them? Or wait?" Cal's hand rested on the back of his drone. "We don't wait. We act. Humans are stubborn, and we're loud about it." A sharp chime sounded in the chamber. The translucent delegate's hands lifted, gesturing to isolate the speakers. Cal's micro-drone flared to life, buzzing silently, ready to record, analyze, and, if necessary, defend. The council gasped in unison. Cal stepped forward, his voice carrying over the alien frequencies. "You've tried to manipulate the station, to endanger lives for your ambition. House Ashbourne didn't do it, and I have proof." Gasps of shock echoed. The translucent delegates' bioconduits pulsed a deep red. They hadn't expected a human to speak with such certainty. Thryn's claws clacked sharply against the floor in support, a sound like distant artillery. "Let him speak," she commanded. Cal unleashed the drone's recording, projecting the evidence for all to see. Traces of the sabotage, timestamps, and the unmistakable energy signatures leading back to Manipulator. Holographic traces outlined the shadow's movements, clear and undeniable. Silence fell. Even the most skeptical delegates paused, the glow of their eyes flickering as they absorbed the evidence. For the first time, Cal felt the quiet thrill of victory, not because he had power, but because human persistence had exposed it. Against alien cunning, against political webs, against near impossible odds, humans had endured. The shadow, trapped in their own lies, tried to mask it with a surge of energy, but it was too late. Every eye in the chamber, every bioconduit and metal scale, had seen the truth. Cal exhaled slowly, the chamber's hum now a low, satisfied purr. Thryn's click of approval echoed softly. "Humans," she said quietly, "are remarkably inconvenient." Cal smirked. "You have no idea." Chapter 7, The Edge of the Known. The spire's hull groaned as it plunged into the outer rim of the Nebulon Expanse, a void so vast it swallowed light and distorted sound. Stars twisted into streaks as the station adjusted its trajectory, emergency thrusters firing in bursts that rattled corridors. Cal gripped the rail of the maintenance catwalk, knuckles white beneath his gloves. Around him, the metallic scent of heated circuits mingled with the acrid tang of overworked oxygen filters. "This is it," Thryn said, her voice a low hiss over the comms, resonating in a pitch only humans could just barely tolerate. Her forearms flexed as she manipulated a floating control console, isolating energy conduits and rerouting power. The Saboteur is here, and they intend to end the Spire. They've trapped the secondary drives in a containment field. If we don't act now... Cal's heart skipped. There was no room for hesitation. Humans thrived in impossible situations. He had faced zero-gravity malfunctions, venting oxygen in alien politics, but this was the outermost edge, the point where failure meant oblivion. "Let's show them why humans don't quit," he said, activating the tether drones. They hummed to life, orbiting him like tiny satellites. Sparks from nearby conduit damage painted the walls in flickering gold and red. Ahead, the Saboteur's chambers shimmered with a field of distorted energy, waves pulsing like liquid glass. The shadow moved inside, its form blurred, almost invisible except for the faint glint of metallic eyes. Cal's eyes narrowed. This was no ordinary opponent. The being's intellect was alien, ruthless, and deliberate, but humans had unpredictability on their side. "On my mark," Cal whispered, fingers dancing across the drone controls. 3, 2, now. The drones darted forward, slipping past containment field's weak points, each carrying microdisruptors designed to hack alien tech. Sparks erupted as the field flared in response, painting the corridor in surreal bursts of blue and violet. The Saboteur hissed, a sound like shattering crystal, and lashed with tendrils of pulsing energy. Cal rolled with it, launching himself through zero-gravity arcs, tethering to a nearby support strut. He felt the pull of momentum, the weightless suspension of his body, and the cool rush of recycled air brushing his face. Humans weren't the fastest, weren't the strongest, but they were stubborn, relentless, and no alien intelligence he had ever met could predict a human's willingness to improvise. Thryn joined the attack, her claws slicing through the pulsing energy field, redirecting power to overload circuits and create breaches in containment. "Human, the central core," she clicked urgently. Cal's eyes caught it, a pulsing sphere of energy, the station's main drive, trapped in a cascading feedback loop of alien sabotage. The drones converged, hacking into the system while he manually stabilized the conduits with his gloved hands. Sparks flew, a low roar filled the chamber, and the floor hummed like a living heartbeat. "Almost there," Cal shouted, sweat beading along his brow. His muscles burned as he counted the energy pulses, his mind racing through sequences of logic, instinct, and sheer human audacity. "Come on, you stubborn piece of tech." The Saboteur lunged, tendrils flaring, but Cal was faster. Using a combination of drone diversions and zero-gravity flips, he dodged, leveraging his weight and momentum to slam a microdisruptor directly into containment field's control node. The field shuddered violently, then collapsed. The main drive's core stabilized with a hum, cascading energy flowing normally once more. The Saboteurs screamed in frustration, their form flickering as a containment failure disrupted their biolink. Thryn's claws clamped onto Cal's shoulder in a gesture that felt almost like a touch of approval. "You humans are remarkably resilient." Cal grinned, panting sweat and frost glinting under the emergency lights. "And annoyingly stubborn. But it works." The shadow recoiled, defeated, its plans unraveling. Security drones, guided by Thryn's commands, restrained the alien, neutralizing the threat without further damage. The spire groaned as it righted itself in orbit, emergency lights shifting back to a steady white. Cal let out a slow breath, feeling the pulse of the station beneath him. He looked at Thryn, the spire, and the crew now moving freely again. Humans had survived, humans had adapted, humans had won. Not by alien standards perfection, not by brute force, but by courage, creativity, and sheer, stubborn determination. Thryn clicked softly, her eyes reflecting the pulsing lights of the nebula beyond the viewport. "Perhaps the universe underestimated humans, as I once did." Cal laughed, the sound echoing in the metallic corridors. Good thing we don't mind being underestimated. For a moment, suspended in the glow of distant stars, amidst the hum of engines and the scent of recycled air, it was clear. Humans were a force the galaxy hadn't fully accounted for. And at the edge of the known, that made all the difference. Chapter 8, Horizons of Humanity. The spire hummed with a calm that had been absent for weeks. Lights glowed steadily along the corridors, holographic consoles flickering in harmonious rhythm, and the faint hum of energy fields thrummed like a heartbeat through the station's metallic veins. Cal walked along the observation deck, fingers brushing against the cool glass of the viewport, watching the stars swirl in the Nebulon expanse, distant suns burning like watchful eyes over a galaxy that had tried and failed to underestimate him. Thryn hovered beside him, her translucent wings catching a faint glimmer of starshine. She clicked softly, a sound Cal had come to recognize as thoughtful, almost reverent. You have done more than survive, human. You have changed perceptions, not just of yourself, but of your kind. Cal shrugged, though his lips curved in a proud smile. Humans have a habit of doing that. We're persistent. We notice what others ignore. We improvise. His gaze drifted to the spiral of distant nebulae, colors alien and beautiful, almost overwhelming in their intensity. Sometimes that's enough. Enough. Thryn's eyes, foresharp and probing, studied him. You have saved the station, exposed the saboteur, and revealed that humans are remarkably unpredictable. Her mandibles clicked softly, almost contemplative. Enough, yes, but perhaps more than even you realize. Cal looked down the corridor below, where humans, aliens, and hybrid crews were moving in synchronized purpose, repairing systems, recalibrating conduits, and exchanging relieved smiles. Every gesture, every motion, reminded him that survival was rarely a solo act. And yet, human ingenuity had sparked the change. He exhaled slowly, letting the quiet of space wrap around him. The spire had survived. The saboteur had been exposed, and the fragile web of alliances within the council had shifted. Humans had not only survived, they had influenced the galaxy's edge. And that influence was subtle but undeniable. Thryn nudged him gently. There is one more thing. Cal turned, curious, sensing her uncharacteristic hesitation. She gestured toward the council chamber below, where delegates had gathered once more. The translucent lead delegate was speaking, but this time it was not accusation or disdain. Instead, there was acknowledgement in its tone. The bio-conduits pulsed in softer patterns, signaling acceptance. They have recognized your people, she said, not as fragile tools, not as insignificant. Humans are remarkable. Cal's chest tightened, a mix of pride and awe. He thought back to the long hours, the narrow corridors, the zero-gravity maneuvers, the way every instinct had been tested and honed. The galaxy was vast, full of species whose lifespans, intelligence, and technologies far outstrip humans. And yet, here, in this crucible, humans had not just survived, they had excelled. I guess we're not so easy to ignore, he said, his voice almost a whisper, carried away by the hum of the station. Thryn's eyes softened, and she tilted her crest in approval. Not easy to ignore, and perhaps not meant to be. A sudden chime interrupted their reverie, a message from the shipyards orbiting the nearby star. A new class of human vessel was ready, sleek and adaptive, capable of responding to situations no alien fleet had anticipated. The fleet bore the unmistakable mark of human design, efficiency, creativity, and unpredictability. Cal smiled, a wide grin that reached his eyes. Looks like the edge of the known just got a lot more interesting. Thryn hovered close, clicking softly in amusement. Do you always leave your mark wherever you go, human? Only where it matters, he replied. He glanced back at the spire, then at the swirling stars of the expanse, and finally at the small group of humans below, their faces filled with hope and determination. and humans tend to make it count. For a moment, time seemed to stretch, the cosmos holding its breath. The hum of the station, the distant stars, the scent of recycled air mixed with alien ozone, all of it felt alive, aware. Humanity had arrived, stubborn, adaptable, and unstoppable, and the universe, wide as it was, would never forget it. Cal turned his gaze forward, toward uncharted space, toward challenges that had never been faced, toward horizons humanity had yet to reach. The nebulae stretched like a river of light, waiting for humans to carve their path through it. And for the first time in the edge of the known, Cal felt a deep, unshakable certainty. Humans were not just survivors. Humans were a force the galaxy had yet to understand, and they were just getting started. Cal floated in the observation deck, tethered loosely as the hum of the Spire's engines thrummed beneath his feet. Beyond the viewport, a nebula spilled colors unseen by any human eye, violet spirals curling into gold streaks, stars glittering like shards of crystal. The alien constellation stretched endlessly, but for the first time, space felt intimate, alive, and belonging. Thryn hovered beside him, her translucent wings flickering with reflected starlight. Her four eyes softened as she studied him, a quiet awe in every subtle gesture. "I underestimated humans," she whispered, her voice almost lost in the hum of the station. "Not your strength, not your speed, but your courage, your persistence." Cal reached out, letting his hand brush against hers, feeling the warmth despite her alien physiology. "You weren't wrong about that," he said softly. "But you—" He paused, searching for words that carried the weight of everything they'd survived. "You taught me that even the impossible could be understood, and even the unthinkable could be trusted." The spire shuddered gently, the artificial gravity pulsing like a heartbeat, and the distant neon lights of orbiting cities flickered against the hull. Thryn leaned closer, her mandibles clicking softly, a sound that had become almost comforting. "Then perhaps humans and aliens are not so different," she said, voice tender. Cal smiled, a rare, unguarded grin. "Different? Maybe. But humans, we always make it count." And in that moment, as stars swirled and alien voices echoed faintly across the decks, they were no longer human and alien. They were partners, survivors, explorers. The galaxy was vast, the unknown endless, but together they had proven that humanity's stubborn spark could light even the darkest corners of space.